Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl who was loved very much by all who knew her, but especially by her mother and her grandmother. Her mother made her a red hooded cape to keep her warm, and she loved it so much that she wore it every day. Soon she became known as Little Red Riding Hood. Here comes Little Red Riding Hood, the villagers would say. One morning, her mother baked a cake and asked Little Red Riding Hood to take it to her grandmother, who lived in the woods. She isn't feeling well, said her mother, and it will cheer her up to see you. Be as quick as you can, and please don't stray from the path. Little Red Riding Hood kissed her mother goodbye and set out for the woods. As she walked along the woodland path, she spotted a clearing filled with pretty yellow flowers. How lovely this will be for grandmother, thought Little Red Riding Hood, and she strayed from the path to take a closer look. She had just started to pick up Pussy when a great furry wolf stepped out from behind a tree. He had bright, beady eyes and sharp white teeth. Hello, little girl, said the wolf. Where are you heading on this fine morning? Little Red Riding Hood didn't know that wolves could be wicked, so she answered politely, I am going to see my grandmother, who isn't very well. Does she live nearby? Asked the wolf. Just on the other side of the woods, said Little Red Riding Hood, near the woodcutter's cottage, by the tall oak tree. I see, said the wolf, who was thinking up a plan. Well, I'm sure that seeing you will make her feel much better. Good day, Little Red Riding Hood. What a friendly wolf, thought Little Red Riding Hood, and she continued picking flowers for her grandmother. Meanwhile, the wolf bounded away through the trees as fast as he could, and he soon reached grandmother's cottage. He knocked on the door, and she called out, Who is it? It's a Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf said, trying hard to sound like a little girl. I bought you some flowers. Come in, my dear, said grandmother. The door is open. The wicked wolf opened the door, bounded into the room, and ate up poor grandmother in one big gulp. Then, with a full belly, he slipped on grandmother's nightgown, nightcap, and glasses, climbed into her bed, and pulled up the covers around him. When the Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage, she knocked on the door and was surprised to hear a rough voice call out, Who is it? Little Red Riding Hood, she called, thinking that her grandmother must have a sore throat. I have some cake and flowers to cheer you up. Oh, come in, my dear, answered the wolf. Just turn the handle. I am too tired to get up. Little Red Riding Hood was surprised to see how very strange her grandmother looked. What a terrible illness she must have, she thought to herself. How lovely to see you, dear, said the wolf. Now, why don't you put down the heavy basket and come a little closer? Little Red Riding Hood stepped a little closer and said, Grandmother, what big arms you have! Why, all the better to hug you with, my dear. Little Red Riding Hood stepped closer yet and said, Grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my dear. Little Red Riding Hood stepped even closer and said, Grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear. Little Red Riding Hood stepped forward and said, Grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with, my dear. With that, the wolf leaped out of grandmother's bed and swallowed up Little Red Riding Hood in one great, greedy gulp. Poor Little Red Riding Hood. By now, the wolf's stomach was about to burst, so he decided to lie down on the bed and take a nap. He began to snore so loudly that it shook the walls. The woodcutter, who was on his way home, heard the snores and decided to check on grandmother to see if she was feeling all right. When he opened the door and saw the wolf asleep on the bed and Little Red Riding Hood's cape lying on the floor, he guessed that something terrible had happened. You scoundrel! Cried the woodcutter, and he took his hatchet and carefully cut open the wolf's big fat belly. As he did so, out jumped Little Red Riding Hood, and out stepped her grandmother. They were both alive and very happy to free again, and the wolf was dead. The end.